Alright guys, HyDra again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Today is the day of one of the most anticipated CDL matches of the season so far. OpTic Texas versus the Seattle's had so many storylines in this one. The big storyline for OpTic last weekend was their 3 round 11 losses in Search and Destroy. Dashy says that while the narrative on that might be somewhat overblown, it has been their key focus point of the last few days to resolve before this matchup, and they'll probably need some Search and Destroy improvements if they want to beat the Surge this evening. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. Firstly, can you believe it? Los Angeles Grillers are actually back on Twitter. All they do is, look, happy birthday to Vios for yesterday, of course, their new coach. The last thing they tweeted was when Flames join as their substitutes. They've said nothing for any of their matches, so I don't know what's going on with their social media team, but maybe they're only going to tweet when they win, so we'll see if that actually happens. They play, well, sometime this weekend. I don't think they play today. We'll see the matches, of course, in a few minutes' time. You probably saw this clip floating around on Twitter. I was going to mention it yesterday. This was during that Warzone tournament that Hitch and the guys put on. And, well, as we can see Hitch here laughing about this, because in the background, we can see this is Juki's watching one of these. You know how it is. She's dressed up as a reindeer. She's got some sort of mirror in the background. You probably stumbled across these streams before. So Juki's tunes in to whoever this is and gets kind of caught in 4K because they're bringing up the streams of the players. So I guess he was, I don't know, was he cooling down or whatever between rounds of Warzone, puts this up in the background, and I think that everyone thought, okay, pretty funny moment, like, you know, whatever, we move on. But apparently, Activision had a different perception, and Juki's then comes out and says, just got banned for competing in Activision ran tournaments for at least 2 months for what happened yesterday. It wasn't intentional at all. Okay, it wasn't intentional for that to be shown on the main broadcast. Okay, maybe he didn't have to do what he did, but still, it's kind of wild, right? I don't know what to say, or do I wonder if I can appeal it? So that's kind of crazy, and this Hitch says in the replies, I thought it was just kind of a funny moment, but Juki's just like, yeah, like Activision are telling me I can't play for a couple of months, I'm getting blacklisted from these tourneys for this maybe lapse of judgment, whatever you want to say, but I still thought it was kind of crazy. He just put a message in to potentially try and resolve this issue, but yeah, they're at it again, you know what I mean? Now, yesterday, Cellium came up with some patch notes to say that they have resolved the CDL rules problems in the private matches. So, private match with CDL rules enabled, restrictions are now accurate to the competitive settings version 1.0 specification. Now, okay, even when they do fix this, and we'll discuss that in a second, there's always going to be problems with actually putting GAs in the game, for example. Okay, right now the pros use 1 smoke per team in Search and Destroy. That's allowed, that's acceptable, whatever, we know how it is. But in ranked play, for example, you can technically use 4. Okay, ranked play doesn't exist yet, but you know what I mean. Like, there will be 4 trophies, there will be 4 smoke grenades allowed on the team, and it's like, well, that's a GA, but it's not something that's in the rule set, so it's difficult to enforce. And how do you even code into the game to only allow one of your players to use a smoke? Like, are you not going to allow them to change a class? It becomes a bit complicated. It's something that you would like to see resolved, but generally we just have to kind of put up with when ranked play arrives, not playing quite the same game as the pros. But ideally, the CDL rules game mode, when you activate it, actually works. They put this into the game a week and a bit ago now, and it didn't work then. So yesterday they said, all right, we fixed it, guys, don't worry, it's now accurate. Turns out it's not accurate. The least surprising news of all time. As Hamza says, Glowfrosty, trust me, they haven't. Field upgrade still don't work. So I don't know what they're doing here. Like, honestly, it does boggle the mind how they can say they've added something. And sure, when the CDL rules are added into the game, they're almost always wrong in some way. I don't know why, but it is what it is. But when you then come out and say, oh, we fixed it, guys, don't worry, you kind of expect it to be fixed, but apparently not, it seems, on this occasion. There's also this that a few of you guys pointed out to me. You know that I can't give up an opportunity to talk. Like, the CDL make it too easy for me. You know what I mean? This yesterday, they come up with their top 5 plays of the week, which is cool. Good to have it back. Now, really, top 5 plays should probably be coming out on, like, Monday, maybe Tuesday latest, rather than later in the week, but it is what it is. Now, as you guys can probably tell from the title here, when I looked this up today, I was like, all right, surely not. Surely they must have fixed this. It's going to be the classic thing where I mention this, I roast them for it, and then they've changed it. I went back and looked at their channel this morning. It's still there. They haven't changed it. So because I haven't figured it out yet, LA Thieves Envoy. He ain't on Thieves anymore, brother. Like, this guy went to Ultra. I'm sure the Thieves fans would be very happy if he was back on Thieves. But I had the case, right? Okay, sure, he was there for a couple of years, won the World Championship with him, but now he's on Toronto. He got his 8-kill streak on Toronto this past weekend. So I don't know how this has happened. I don't really understand it. But it's just funny, right? I mean, the CDL, they're just everything. The websites, things like this, it's just, you got to get it right. You know, as the official outlet, you got to get it right. And also mention, just because I know people pointed this out to me before, you know, the question mark, the exclamation mark, the emoji, like, you know, all I'm going to say is they're learning from the best, you know what I mean? There's also this CDL related on the spawns. The new spawn update, the pros aren't really playing on yet because this upcoming matches are played on the old spawns, but the new spawns are now in the game. The amateurs have been playing on them, and this is one example here of what can still happen on Invasion, where you can see number 8 spawns in the back. Now, this is kind of like a known spawn, maybe number 5, whatever it is, spawns in the back here on the, you know, and they all start spawning in the back there, which is, it can happen on this particular hardpoint if you don't really hard block the spawns, then it happens. But, and Karma says, like, that's not new. This has been the case for a while. But arguably, given the location of the blue arrows, they really shouldn't have spawned out there. Like, given where 4 is, given where 3 is pushed up, I don't think they should really spawn in the back in this situation, especially now 4 goes down. I think they should be doing enough here to block it. It turns out they're not, but, you know, maybe you would expect that with the spawn update, they could have changed some of these logic around. I don't mind it necessarily, and Karma understands what the problem is, and if you know that they can spawn there, maybe it's unfair that they spawn there, but if you know they can, then you can actually try and deliberately block it. The thing is that what Parasite's trying to say is that even with the spawn updates, there's not many things have changed, and the things that have changed aren't necessarily for the better. So I think that's the key concern the pros will maybe try and get across over the coming days, or we'll just straight up have to put up with, right? Because as soon as they start scrimming on these maps with the new spawn updates, as soon as basically this weekend is over, they'll switch over to practicing with the newer version of the spawns. There's a question whether it's actually better or not, to be honest, right now. And we know that aBeZy and others are very keen to get Greece into the game, but then they won't be able to do that until after Major 1. That's the rumour that's presently going around. So this past weekend was an interesting one, of course. Dashy and OpTic, they get 1 victory on the board. They lose to the New York Subliners. They beat the Minnesota Rocker. This weekend's kind of a more important one. Their match schedule is still set up quite nicely for them to get, I would say, at least 4 victories. They play Ravens on Sunday, and then next weekend, or basically when we get to January, they play, I think, Vegas and then Miami. So, you know, Carolina, Vegas, Miami, they should be on paper victories for OpTic. They play FaZe as their final match, which obviously is on paper going to be tough, but you know, we know that OpTic's record against FaZe the last couple of years has been somewhat different to that. And then this is a very interesting matchup tonight against the Seattle Surge. So they're still looking relatively pretty despite their loss to the Subliners. But it was a big talking point last weekend, their search and destroy. Not just the 2 Game 5 or 2 losses in round 11 in the Subliners series, but also the fact that they lost round 11 as well in the map 2 versus the Minnesota Rocker, a team that had got slammed in search the previous day or the day before by the Vegas Legion, right? They won like 3 rounds over 2 maps of search Rocker, and then they come in and beat OpTic. So that was raising questions, especially the manner in which they lost to Subliners, but also even the manner in which they lost to the Rocker guys, you know, arguably threw away the round 11 as well. So definitely things to think about. Dashy commented on this, right, and was discussing that he thinks, understandably maybe, that the narrative around the search and destroy was somewhat overblown, and it makes sense. Like, they won 5 rounds in all of those maps. It's not like they were getting giga slammed, but still, you know, he recognizes there were mistakes, there were things we need to clean up, and of all the game modes, the search and destroy is the one they're primarily focused on, saying that really what they've done for the last couple of days is pretty much exactly that.
Your SnD's almost there, yeah. Now everyone's tweaking about, or not everyone, but people are tweaking about like our SnD. So we were tweaking about the round 11s. It's one of those things where it's like, if we win those 3 round 11s, are people saying our SnD's godlike? You know what I mean? It's just, it's 1 round in each map that changes the whole like narrative complexion of everything. You know what I'm saying? I don't really know. I'd rather lose the 5-5s than getting 6-1 or 6-0, and then we're like, holy shit, we're asset surge, you know? Obviously, like, we do have to clean up those things in SnD. I'm not saying like, oh, we're good in surge, because it's definitely the one game mode that out of the 3 that we're gonna make some adjustments in for show.
Bro, he's back spawn.
Microphone activated. Microphone muted.
Here it is. And it's TikTok. 1v1 versus the goat of the goat of SnD. I already see the title coming. 1 shot, crazy, trick shot off the railing, jump up, slide down. Oh.
Nah, you can't go Kyrie on him.
Oh, shit.
Microphone.
There was also this clip, of course, as well, coming out of Scrappy here, which was another funny one. We know what Scrappy tends to think about Shotzzy and go for TikTok plays. Now, look, this play from Shotzzy was really nice. I think there's no doubt about it. Like, he gets the info, he runs away, he, plays his life rather well, and obviously the nice movement helps him out a little bit, but the way that he played this off the top ropes here, like, to get this kill starting underneath, pretty nice stuff. And obviously Scrappy didn't have too much to say after the fact. But obviously OpTic recognised that some of those overheating moments in Search and Destroy have costed them before, and they, cost them this past weekend, but they still got out of the weekends 1-1 regardless. But today I think they have more of a challenge up against the Seattle Surge. Surge is an interesting team. Of course, as I've mentioned before, they need many things, I think, this roster, if they want to be good, to go in their favour. And so far they are, and they're looking really tasty. I mean, let's be honest, this past weekend they played the same teams that FaZe did. They played Boston, they played Thieves. Those are the same rosters that FaZe plays. And Surge made it look... I wouldn't say they had much more of a challenge in those series than FaZe did. So it does make you wonder. Of course, there's all different matchups, right? Some teams are better against other teams than others are. But still, I think Surge are very impressive. And the manner in which they close out this series and their Search and Destroy looks pretty good as well. So they're coming against OpTic today. It's a big match for a number of reasons. There's also, I'm pretty sure, the Rocker versus Heretics matchup this weekend. I don't believe this is today, but I thought this is a nice tweet to mention for you guys that were around back then. When the Black Ops 4 Pro League qualifier was going down all the way back in the early part of 2019, and it was G2 Esports at the time, so now they've partnered with Minnesota Rocker, which is why they're mentioning this. And there was that pretty famous series that I'm pretty sure finished on Arsenal Search and Destroy. I remember vividly MettalZ beaming methods off the heady where the jet was, with like, I think he had a Maddox, and then he probably had an IC, I'm not really sure. Beamed him off the heady, and they closed out the game 5. They won the series. They knocked G2 out of Pro League qualification. Heretics make it. So that's one that's probably still pretty sore for G2 fans, and of course that's now part of the Minnesota Rocker. So these are the series going on today, and also over the next couple of weeks. This is the schedule that Doug Levy actually puts together. I thought was kind of nice. So these are the matches that all the teams play, and this is according to his model, the expected win-loss of each team as a result. So just for example, FaZe plays Surge, Gorillas, Vegas, Carolina, and Texas. So they're expected on their performances to probably go 6-1, something like that, over these matches. Similar story for Toronto, New York, OpTic, and down we go. Gorillas not expected to be that good, and right now the theoretical bottom 4 that won't make the winners bracket is going to be Boston, Carolina, Vegas, and Gorillas. But it's still very much early days on that one, and the respective rankings of these teams is, are Thieves a guaranteed win against Gorillas or Carolina? I wouldn't say so as it stands. So it all depends kind of how this model is calculating things and how good these teams are expected to be. Surge, for example, are expected to lose to, both FaZe and Toronto, which is probably valid, but who knows with the way that they're currently playing. So these are the games of today. Miami versus Vegas. All these series are really interesting. Like, are Heretics legit? They kind of smoked Ravens last week, and then Ravens went on to beat Legion. So this is a series that if you're Heretics, you really want to win. I mean, Vikul was quite clear after the series that he doesn't think Carolina are any good, and that team then went on to beat Vegas. So he was basically saying, look, we want to be top 4 every event. So we'll see if Heretics can back up those words, because they kind of 3-0 handled business quite nicely. They do seem to be really good Heretics at high-rise control, so maybe if Vegas avoid that, there could be a better chance. But I definitely think I'm leaning the Miami Heretics on this one. Thieves Breach is a massive series. Like, the loser of this series is quite likely, in fact I'd say very likely, to start in the losers bracket at the major. Like, this is a must-win for both teams. They're both 0-2. They've both had, underwhelming starts. I think Boston, I would say, are maybe the slight favourites here. I think I've been marginally more impressed with them so far. They could have potentially beaten FaZe. Maybe they should have beaten FaZe. These were still okay in both the series they played as well. So this, to me, is kind of a coin toss, to be honest. I think I might take Boston in 5. But yeah, this is a massive series. And of course, it's Slasher kind of versus his former team. Of course, he was on Thieves a couple of years ago. And then the big one, though, really, OpTic versus Surge. To be honest, of all the kind of interesting grudge matches, there's definitely going to be some bad blood in here somewhere. You might not see too much of it come out publicly, and I don't really know what Hook thinks about the whole getting dropped for Pred situation. I can't imagine he's happy about it. I'm sure Hook understands, but at the end of the day, is Hook happy that OpTic dropped him for Pred and now he's playing them on Surge? I imagine that he'd quite like to beat them. Illy, of course, as well, was quite clear when he was dropped in 2022. They then brought him back and then they dropped him again. But he said, look, I'll see you all next year type thing. And I'm sure that Illy wants to get a victory over these guys after the way that whole situation was handled. And then the Rambo versus Dashy thing as well. Look, Rambo was very professional. He didn't really come up with anything publicly after the whole Dashy saga went down, but I'm sure he wasn't happy with the way things were handled there internally, and I'm sure Rambo would love to get a victory against his former team. Then again, OpTic, I would say, are the marginal favourites for this series. I think their respawn is probably going to be better than Surge's. If OpTic win map 2, I think they'll win the series. If they don't, I would probably say Surge in 5. But yeah, I think OpTic might, to me, they're like 55-45 favourites, OpTic, but I think it's super marginal, and there's so much, so many storylines here. I just can't wait to see how this concludes. So yeah, we will be breaking this one down tonight. Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.